Doom may not have been the original first-person shooter, but what Mortal Kombat did for fighting games is what id Software accomplished with their groundbreaking title. They took what made Wolfenstein 3D so successful and simply upped the ante, and despite the ravenous response from concerned parents, journalists, and politicians across the globe, a bold new genre stepped up alongside the platformer and arcade fighting games as one of the most popular types of video games in general. If you're familiar with the history of gaming, then you'll probably know that eventually, people tried to break ground on their own terms, and certainly many developers did, with innovative titles like GoldenEye 007, Unreal Tournament, Half-Life, and Halo, just to name a few. But as the industry continued to push forward with making bigger and better first-person shooters, Doom sort of retreated into the corner and became that franchise that everyone remembered and revered, but sort of considered to be past its prime. A relic of a bygone era of gaming, if you will. You could count me among those people that never really thought much of it growing up, but that's more so because I grew up in a conservative religious household. With the kinds of media that were allowed to penetrate the walls of my childhood home, I was lucky to even play mature-rated games from time to time, let alone a game that unapologetically evokes satanic imagery. But eventually, I bought the Xbox 360 port of the original game shortly after I graduated high school, and I loved it! Because of this, once Doom returned with the aptly named Doom in 2016, I was hyped. However, I didn't play that one until just about a month ago. But wouldn't you know it, I loved that game too! I eagerly bought a copy of the PS4 version of Doom Eternal due to how much I enjoyed that game, and to be short of words, this game is everything that its predecessor was, just prettier, bigger, and better. Granted, you should take that comment with a grain of salt, because after all, I was never invested in these games for any reason beyond the story modes. So I have no comment on anything related to the multiplayer, the exclusion of SnapMap, or the horrendous Bethesda.net DRM issues. All I am here to talk about is the single-player campaign, which in my not-so-humble opinion, is one of the best I've ever experienced. First and foremost, I should address that I don't consider a perfect game to be a flawless game. Any work of art can have issues big or small, and there are small things I can nitpick here for sure. But otherwise, Doom Eternal is the epitome of a game that is perfect for me, because I think something is perfect when nothing goes wasted. It's a Wonderful Life, 12 Angry Men, Back to the Future, Fantastic Mr. Fox, Ratatouille. These are among my all-time favorite movies because not a single second is wasted on something pointless or dumb. I grouped Doom Eternal in that same category with them because the game not only was designed from the ground up to give the player a ton of different options for how to approach combat, but basically, if you ignore any single one of those mechanics, you're screwed. Every single button on the controller serves a vital purpose, and they're mapped out in such a way that makes sense, feels comfortable, and actually provides a valuable contribution to what you're doing. Considering that my playthrough was done on the ultra-violence difficulty, I really mean what I'm saying here about that, because this game is tough. Doom Eternal does not care if you have incredibly low health, if you're out of shotgun shells, or if you're cornered. Those demons will just keep charging at you, and they will viciously attack you with everything they've got. And if you thought that Doom 2016's demons were aggressive and hard-hitting, well, I regret to inform you that you have another thing coming. Those who have difficulty with first-person shooters will not fare well here. But here's the thing. You are the legendary Doomslayer, and the game does everything in its power to make sure you know that. This beefcake is characterized as the only being in the universe that the forces of hell are afraid of. They don't even cower before gods, and yet one man is enough to make demons freeze with fear. That is why they're so aggressive after all, not because they're excited to kill you, but because they are afraid to die by your hand. You are literally the thing that a demon would have nightmares about. And as I alluded to, the game wastes nothing in letting you know that, and gives you all the tools you need to succeed and survive. Let's observe. First off, there are the guns. Pretty much every weapon except the pistol returns from the previous game, and so do the modifications. I'm not too fond of how some guns sound compared to their Doom 2016 counterparts, but they still pack a punch. Some of the new modifications even improve upon their 2016 versions, with the shotgun grenades now being sticky bombs. The assault rifle can fire a devastating armor-piercing round when aiming with a scope. And the incredible meat hook attachment for the super shotgun acts as a way to traverse the environment and get close enough to a demon to blast it to Kingdom Come. These guns are all incredibly powerful, and I found that they were all useful to varying degrees throughout the campaign, especially the trusty BFG 9000. But those aren't the only tools you have at your disposal. The chainsaw makes a return from the previous game, except this time, you actually have to freaking use it to survive. Ammo runs out quickly and isn't exactly easy to come by, so finding that one zombie or imp and chopping them in half will replenish your bullets when you need them most. Thankfully, the developers compensated for this by making your fuel reserves regenerative, so you don't have to scavenge for gas cans unless you want to take down bigger demons with the chainsaw. There will always be just enough fuel when you need it. You can still do glory kills to regain health, but this time around, doing more of them will charge up what's called a blood punch, which is exactly what it sounds like. If you want extra armor, set enemies on fire with the flame belch or a fully upgraded meat hook. If you need a second to breathe when getting ambushed, throw the new ice bomb and then use one of your explosives. That'll do the trick. The demons also have exploits now, with a major example being that the Pinky can easily be killed when its unguarded tail is shot off. Almost every single demon has a weakness, and they make for some pretty entertaining ways to really butcher these poor monsters. Not to mention that you can track how much health a demon has left by how much flesh you've literally shot off of their bodies. And as you've probably noticed from this footage, the dash ability adds so much speed and maneuverability that I can't imagine a Doom game not having this mechanic anymore. If you don't dash, then you're most likely gonna die. And I won't tell you what this beautiful thing does, but trust me, it's incredible. Use it wisely once you get it. This array of tools and weaponry might seem a bit overwhelming, and for some players it might be, but thanks to the absolutely incredible control scheme, they all work together seamlessly. Using these just became second nature to me, and were integrated well with the core gameplay. Given that the game already asks you to be faster and more aggressive than you ever have been with a shooter, the fact that these tools are available, and quite useful, just make it all fun. And I really must stress that. This game was freaking fun. It may be very tough, and there were times that when I would face off against marauders, engage in the awe-inspiring boss battles, or try out a Slayer Gate where things would just get tiresome. Sometimes, I would need to just take a break just to calm myself down, but nonetheless, I would keep on going at it, because the game never stopped being fun and engaging to me. I dug the immensely fast pace and insanely involved combat, and thankfully the levels were designed to work well alongside that. Exploring for all the hidden secrets and collectibles were just as fun as the regular combat, and uncovering all of the mysteries of each meticulously designed level felt like I got my money's worth out of the single-player campaign alone. On average, with all the time I spent on both combat, exploration, and upgrading the ever-living crap out of the Doomslayer, I would normally spend about 2 hours in each level, and I wasn't going slow either. These missions are just massive, and are filled to the brim with things to do, on top of being developed with intricate environmental details, colorful art design that took huge leaps from the limited settings of the previous game, and a top-notch graphics engine that ran at a buttery smooth 60 frames per second from beginning to end. With gameplay this energetic, and a Mick Gordon metal soundtrack as incredible as the one featured here, Doom Eternal's campaign is a massive slap to the face to any AAA publisher that skimps out on single player. The only thing I feel slightly mixed on is the story, which I wasn't expecting to be grandiose by any means. I was primarily there just to clean up the mess the UAC made on Earth. But like other elements of the game, id Software went bigger and bolder with the storytelling, delving much deeper into the lore of the Doom universe while having in-engine cutscenes. My initial reservations with all this were that as I would read the codex entries, a lot of the buzzwords thrown into the mix just became a jumbled mess in my brain. Keeping track of all these terms was a nightmare. Along with that, some elements of the Doomslayer's backstory took away a little bit from the mystique of the character. But eventually these issues worked themselves out for a couple of reasons. For one thing, the codex is actually an incredibly fascinating read, and is surprisingly well thought out for a game like this. The fact that Doom Eternal even has lore this extensive is part of the joke, but it gets legitimately interesting. What's more is that the Doomslayer's place in all of this is representative of how we're supposed to feel about the situation. In essence, his position in the story is like Mr. Incredible.
I just cleaned up this mess. Keep it clean for 10 minutes.
He is just pissed off and sick and tired of everyone's crap. He'd be much happier to just spend his time playing video games, admiring his toy collection, listening to music, or playing with his pet bunny, but humanity just had to screw everything up by giving in to their carnal, selfish desires. The game is all about letting loose bottled up rage. You vicariously help the Doomslayer do this by going on a gleeful killing spree against the sinful legions of hell and those who would exploit their resources. And you as the player get to release all of your own rage by just getting to slaughter a bunch of demons in one of the most mechanically sound and best designed first-person shooters ever made. On a much different note, I was laid off from my main job at the end of April, which was close to the time that I started playing this game. Having been the primary breadwinner between my wife and I, this was a shocking turn of events, and one that caused us to rethink how we would move forward with things financially. So despite the fact that we are thankfully doing okay for now, there was still a little bit of stress from not knowing what the future would hold for us. You could say then that Doom Eternal came at the exact right time for me. When I wasn't occupied with trying to make financial decisions or get my temporary business up and running, I would just sit back, relax, and enjoy being able to escape for a few hours. I can't thank id Software enough for the incredible adventure they let me take, and I couldn't be happier with how this game turned out. Rip and tear until it is done.